Hello, welcome to a reading in celebration of Dove's song, Heavenly Mother in Mormon Poetry, which came out 3 years ago. We're also celebrating Mother's Day, which is next week. We're doing that celebration a little bit early, and we're celebrating motherhood. And thank you for joining us today for a reading. I think it's going to be really exciting. We have several readers, so we're going to move quickly into the reading. First up, we have Emily Adams. I'm going to post bios of these wonderful poets in the chat, so if you would like to see a little bit more about them, see their links and where you can purchase their books or read more of their writing, you can do so by looking in the chat for that information. So I'm going to hand over the microphone to Emily Adams.
Hey everyone. Tonight I'll be reading Faded Garden. I don't remember the time of nameless animals. The lions have been lions for too long for even Adam to think of them as anything else. My calloused feet have forgotten the luxury of a thornless, silt-soft ground. Grandchildren often ask me to describe the face of the serpent man who came to tempt me, but the details of his jawline, eye color, and skin tone have all rubbed free of my mind, scrubbed away by 1,000 other faces I've seen since. Others beg for word-painted pictures of the ominous tree, but I can only say I can't recall anything like it before or since. Each grove lacks a certain half-remembered scent. I don't remember much of Eden. My family must prompt me in the particulars of my own story. My garden has, mercifully, faded into a myth of soft-gummed carnivores and self-watered wheat. All the details, all the colors, all the sharp edges are gone. But the fruit, I can still taste it.
Alex Caldiero is next. Alex?
Once upon a time, the beautiful lady asked, "Is this poetry?" She let herself sit for a moment and smiled. There was no longer any reason to fear an answer. So she asked again, "Is this poetry?" It was right after the time had elapsed in which the absence of the king had passed without anyone noticing neither the time nor the king. It was a mythic moment in the lives of humans who were just beginning to start to wonder who and how they had come upon the notion of themselves. Without reason, her mouth began to speak a poem word by word until the last word was about to be almost too much to bear. "Is this poetry?" she asked, and sat back and let herself be looked at closely. Her skin was soft to the eye, her breath hot to the eye, her clothing invisible to the eye. Eyes only could fathom the depth of her body's weight upon the chair, same as upon and against the body of the beholder whose eyes mean something wonderful is happening. "Les diamants," she said without moving her lips. "My songs are such poor witnesses," she added, and let herself be looked at even closer. The texture of her skin was incredible. Even as the eyes got their fill and should have closed, but instead kept coming closer to enjoy microscopic details of pure delight. The ideal mattress should not be as soft nor as inviting as her arms, and yet to sleep was the only thought that had not found its way back home. Put your hands on my eyes, she said, to the very eyes that had wanted to take her in and into themselves, find the meaning of who she really was. Poetry could start at any moment. It did. There was no longer any reason to ask or to wonder. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Our next reader is Tyler Chadwick, who unfortunately couldn't be here, but he sent a video. And so I'm going to go ahead and share that now.
The Goddess Speaks by Tyler Chadwick, after a painting of the same name by J. Kirk Richards. Feel the pull of her words deep in your bones, in your gooseflesh rising as her voice climbs the ancient staircase of your genes, footfalls rapping with the cosmos' pulse, with the tangled hustle of stardust humming, throbbing, cracking worlds open. In the crowd come to bask in her open-air sermon on flesh and breath. Let her sermon gentle the body's erratic liturgy, its litany of DNA and longing. Watch her preaching swell into an infinite cathedral. See how the incense of her verbs tickles the pillars, how she singes the nave with her exegesis, how the chancel burns in the open canon of her glory. See how the flames halo at her touch, how they tongue her secrets, how they whisper your name.
Okay, I'm back. Our next reader is going to be Trish Hopkinson.
Hello, let me bring my poem up here. Thank you so much, Dayna. This is a newer poem, so it wasn't in the collection, but it's entitled She God, a Godless Celebrates Summer Solstice. There is no other divine. Yes, there is no spirit besides. There are no confessions by these hips, no repentance for these breasts, no holding in this midriff, or potions for its purple marks, its decorations deserved. O life proof, O sturdy shell, O supreme self, no need to wash these feet, this face, leave the night sweat, the caramel scent of waking, let the morning shimmer, and let it be only in my name. Thank you.
Thank you, Trish. Our next reader is Theric Jepson.
Thanks, Dayna. This is Heavenly Mother, or excuse me, this is The Heavenly Mother at Taco Bell, published last year by the archive. Thanks to them. Oh, Maddie, identified by a purple-white tag, your hair piled up in a bun above your purple-white visor. You don't know anything about me. We haven't met before. And this isn't a Taco Bell I'm apt to visit again. So you'll never know that I've been thinking about the feminine divine, Ashtoreth, the erased wife of our Abrahamic God. I can say our, right? Your Alabama makeup screams evangelical to my West Coast mind, and I, myself, am a saint. And her symbol, the tree, the grove. If you look, oh Maddie, not into my window, but over my car, you'll see the 3 tulip trees I saw reflected in your drive-through window before you slid it open and emerged, your slight teenage bosom and weary Southern accent looming over me, accepting my oblations on credit and handing me much-needed calories in 2 bean burritos and a crunchy taco, a yonic triangle, with almighty proffer of sauce and whatever manifestation I can handle, mild, hot, or fire from heaven above, from wisdom herself, our mother. Oh, Maddie.
Beautiful. That one's new to me. I love it. Thanks, Theric. I don't think so. So that means we'll move right to Calvin Olsen. Calvin, take it away.
Thanks, Dayna. This is my poem, Misting Eden, which I think, but I didn't check because I'm a bad student, is the poem that is in Dove Song. Misting Eden. From the other side of the room, stars flash into being like sparks from a wheel and are placed artistically as well as functionally close enough to see each other, but just. Not the workshop you expected to see. The woman's studio strikes you as small. Enclosed, she would say. There are color wheels in the corner, fragments of a new flower's throat she hasn't gotten around to. Tables and tables of handwritten math stacked below the window, and through the glass, her masterpiece, the moon. If you shut the door, something dangles in a frame, the first raindrop ever made. She invented water, insisted on misting Eden herself. Walking backward through what you would call a mess, she doesn't stumble once, keeping her eye on the charcoal sketch of a long-necked bird you'd never recognize. Talk to me, baby, a whisper at best. At a stretch, one wing falters, and she, knowingly, laughs. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Calvin. I'm so glad that you could join us today. I love that poem. Next, I'm going to share a piece. It's a newer poem. It was published in issue 53 of Ruminate, and it's called God the Mother Speaks of Trees. Before the world pulsed alive, I wove leaves on my loom, sawtooth, lobed oak, ginkgo's fan, feather and star. In my maker's lab, I spun and plaited strands of cells, xylem and phloem, filled groves and named them sacred. My votaries seek the loam of my presence under shive light and insect frass lit to a haze of gold. Here, I've appeared since the beginning, clothed in soft green, glow of lamb's ear and lichen thallus, my gray braided with witch's hair. Here, I've revealed myself to my children, farm lads with calloused hands, girls with poultice herbs in their aprons. I whisper, willow, touch the grooved bark with outstretched finger, lead them to clumps of mushrooms, their fruiting bodies bursting from a nurse log's molder. I'm nurse log to the universe. From the journey work of stellar dust, from lignin and detritus, I beckon each thread, each tender sapling. How I love them. Children take mothers for granted. Cradle, matchstick, pyre, my heartwood milled for paper, pulp. Don't underestimate my present reach of roots or ignore invisible messages I seep through air. You are cambium in my hands. You are forever seeds I'd scatter, trunks I'd shield from wind throw, snap. My time is green, clocked in needles and rings. Ferns unfurl in my wake. Fiddlehead, maidenhair, sword. Thank you. Okay, our next reader is going to be Marilène Phipps. I lied. Our next reader is Carolyn Pearson. I'm so sorry. Carolyn, are you there?
I am here.
I told you that you were coming after me, and then
surprise.
And then surprise. Sorry about that.
Here I am. Thank you very much. This is a poem from my fairly recent book called Finding Mother God, Poems to Heal the World. And this poem is entitled Under Your Wings. Divine Mother, gather me as promised. Gather me as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings. Sweep me to you now with feathers soft and strong. A storm comes, and the violent sky cracks loud and open. The rain would wash me like a leaf into the stream. Press the fragile, fearful ball of me close to your dear body, warm and remembered. Safe silence is under the quick beat of your heart. Divine Mother, leave me not to the storm. Gather me. Gather me, gather me under your beautiful as angel wings.
Thank you, Carolyn. That was beautiful. If you don't have Carolyn's new book yet, Finding Mother God, I highly recommend it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next reader is Marilène Phipps.
Muted by itself. Anyway, I was saying that I will be reading one of the poems in the anthology called The Scribe. The lone scribe sits near blue rocks by the ocean, lilies and snapdragons in hand. He will bring them for the Heavenly Mother when he comes home. How odd, this devotion from a creature, a man bearing flowers who lights a candle, sparks a flame in place of an idea, watches it tremble and beckon. So many come in this silence, leave in silence, return to their silence. It is best to bow, to bend, to kneel, uncomprehending, but grateful still, delighted with the imprisonment we call life, flesh for which we care abundantly. What do they see of us from the other side of the veil, caught as we are in a proper divide, carried by this earth and the sounds of drums, primal, unavoidable, that penetrate the womb beyond the night, beyond enclosures, beyond silence, past faded flowers of a receding past, and reach us here in the peace implanted in us like a resurrection. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Marilène. Our next reader is Elizabeth Pinborough, and she's asked me to share a short video because her poem is an ekphrastic poem, right, Elizabeth? Do you want to talk about this or shall I? Probably you.
I'm happy to.
Yes, please.
The video you are going to see is of the most detailed recreation of the human brain that has ever been done. And it is this 8 by 12 foot panel that has been microetched and coated in 22 karat gold, so that when you view the piece, your brain is viewing itself because your brain is creating the artwork that it sees. So this is just a short little video of that.
Maybe you should do some more talking, Elizabeth, while I find it.
Sure. And how this ties into Heavenly Mother, the feminine divine, is, well, even just yesterday, I found this really great quote in a book called Body Dreaming by Marian Dunley. And she talks about how the Gnostics believed that during creation, Sophia, who's the feminine divine, became imprisoned in matter and lost. And so she is the hidden God needing to be released and redeemed. And so this poem is kind of working with that idea, although it was entirely subconscious and not intentional. But I think that it's part of that tradition.
Self-reflected, the most complex artistic rendition of the human brain in the world. At this very moment, your brain is actively perceiving itself. This is what consciousness looks like. Your self reflected.
There are longer YouTube videos if you want to learn more about it, or go to Greg Dunn's website and just be in complete awe of what they are creating. But this is ekphrasis on a sagittal brain slice by Doctors Greg Dunn and Brian Edwards. I could worship you, purest silver white, byways of mind, etched, encoded in liquid silver lines shimmering on the screen. Neurological mysteries are micro-etched and inexhaustible in gilded ridges. I could climb each silver-quick thread and slide into squishy sulci, savor a sacred swish of knowledge kept in the brilliant body-mind. If I could but caress keenest beryl cerebellum, magenta mysterium, I would find her there. I would find her maidens robed in astrocytes, garbed in glia, shawled with stem cells. We never have seen our strong God, curled in the cranial cavity. We never have never seen her, with so much light, her almost unbearable radiance.
Beautiful. Thank you, Elizabeth. I feel like I could watch that video over and over again. It's gorgeous. Maybe I will go find the longer versions. Our next reader is Bob Rees.
I'm going to share my screen with you. And let me say a few words before I read the poem. William Carlos Williams says that the imagination knows all stories before they are told. Heavenly Mother has come alive in this dispensation, especially in the past several decades, as Latter-day Saint poets are both sensing her presence in their lives and her place in our history. Where both truth and reason testify that she was and is present. For me, that includes the first vision and the seminal events of the Restoration. Since deity is sometimes portrayed in scripture through symbols, a burning bush, a dove, the sun, in this poem, I use the rainbow as a symbol of our Heavenly Mother. The rainbow, which is a universal symbol, is seen variously as the celestial bridge connecting heaven and earth, as a gateway to the heavens, as a place where the supernatural takes place, and as a symbol of transformation, enlightenment, and promise of a new life, all of which we associate with the first vision and the unfolding of the Restoration. This is a new poem called Prism. They had agreed that if she were seen, the boy would not be believed in seeing them. Nevertheless, she was there, her iridescent sphere a corona over their column of sun, reflecting, refracting the morning. The flowers turned to her. The green of the trees grew greener, and the fruit trees burst their chroma. She listened to the voices and saw celestial beings in the boy's eyes. Afterwards, she watched him home, the bend of her bow over his mother's house, where he collapsed. And that night, and many nights, he dreamed her. Later, she hovered over the first fire of Kirtland, sheltered the long march to the Missouri, and bent her bow over the new temple in Nauvoo. Nearing the end, looking west from the far side of the great river, he took one last look eastward, and seeing her double bow, he turned back toward Carthage. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Do you realize that your shirt matches your okay, your visuals there? Very, very nicely done, sir. Very nicely done. Our next reader is going to be Kathryn Knight Sonntag.
Ascension after John Dunn. Embrace the first and forever night, heartening as this moon journeys from cresting to full figured, and in this ecstasy begins to fall, earthward, pulling me down to orchards heavy and underground into mysteries of regeneration, soft, bellied seeds nursing. Death, life, death, her step makes darkness delicious. Licking sweet syrups from fungi, kingdom's mother god is not the sun, the straight golden path, but braided roots, white pairs of underworld offering themselves into these my hands, dispelling the garment of wrath. Lady Wisdom reigns in me, in time and ever presence, to my own recovered humanity, my heart finally. My holy cloud, the only Holy Ghost, knit my heart with wind and rain and wolf.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Kathryn. Kathryn, is that one in your book, The Tree at the Center? Or is that a new one?
It's forthcoming in dialogue. It'll be out, I think, this year.
Beautiful. Thank you. Our next reader is Rachel Hunt Steenblik.
The poem that I'm going to be sharing today is the very first Heavenly Mother poem I ever wrote. It is published in Dove Song. It's my first piece there. It's called I Dreamed I Wrote 5 Poems. And I wrote it when I didn't know exactly what a poem was. And when I used to write Elizabeth Pinborough, that we heard before, and say, Elizabeth, like, what makes a poem a poem? What's a prose poem? How do you do line breaks for regular poems? And she very gently and encouragingly wrote me back. So this was my very first try. I searched for my mother the way baby roots for her mother's breast, head nuzzling from side to side, mouth open, ready to suckle, but I was still thirsty. Then my belly grew and my breasts grew and a ravenous little thing came out. I offer her my milk without money and without price. My husband offered it to her once while I sat beside them on a train. She pursed her lips against a false nipple and stared at me with sad eyes. I wondered then if Heavenly Mother walked into another room so we would take the bottle. I wondered then if we are weaned. The father could not hear his daughter's whimpering, though he slept beside her in the same room. He could not hear her crying nor her screaming. The mother woke at every sound. Conch shells, they are not the ocean, they are memories of the ocean. Birds, trees, olive oil, bread, moons, they are not the mother, they are memories of the mother. I hear her everywhere. God's spirit, God's breath, the one he could not live without, gave me breath when I gave my daughter life. She sat beside me on the precipice so I would not be alone. We exhaled and inhaled in unison. She whispered, calling me by name. I asked my daughter 2 questions the day that she was born. Did she remember me, my voice, my smell, my beating heart? Did she remember the one we both call mother? Her voice, her smell, her heart? I can't remember anything.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Rachel and Calvin, Rachel's joining us all the way from China, and Calvin is joining us all the way from Scotland. So we really appreciate them being here in their various time zones. I don't know what time it is in China right now for you, Rachel, but we're so glad that you could join us. I did ask Rachel to talk a little bit about a project that is a call for poems that she has out right now.
Thank you. Dayna had also asked if I had a website, and I don't, which would have been a very good idea. So before I talk about it, I want to say, like, I'm not naive to think that I'm the first. Like, obviously today, like, we see how many Heavenly Mother poets there are. My first full collection was called Mother's Milk, Poems in Search of Heavenly Mother. And I just want to read my introduction that I wrote there. I said, these are the poems that I could write with my questions, my hurt, my hope, and my reaching. Others could write other poems with theirs. I hope that they will. We need them all. And though I meant it very sincerely, like, I wasn't expecting people to start sending me their Heavenly Mother poems that they wrote after reading Mother's Milk. That's actually what happened. Since that time, I have a second Heavenly Mother book called I Gave Her a Name. But just thinking more and more of the importance of having many voices speaking about Heavenly Mother. And today we got to hear several in kind of a continuation of Dove Song. Like, I just want there to be hundreds of more Heavenly Mother poems and for us to gather them together. And like the writing that's happening now, like several of the pieces we heard, I think Dove Song also traces the history of Heavenly Mother poems so beautifully that we know it starts in kind of chronological order with W.W. Phelps to Eliza to those other early writers. But the project that I'm started is called We Gave Her a Name, of trying to gather like very recent Heavenly Mother poems from the last 4 years, and hoping to have lots of perspectives and lots of experiences from people who are other ethnicities, other races, from other countries, along the sexual and gender spectrums, because even like, sometimes people have asked me, like, because I write a lot about my kids or about my own experiences with mothering, and I don't ever think that that's like a one-to-one correspondence of what Heavenly Mother is like, but I think it can be like a hint of something, but we need like all of those hints from every person's experience, because I, as a white woman writing about my children, will be a different experience than someone who doesn't have children or who is coming from a different place. So that's what I have a call for. So I did set up an email address called wegaveheraname@gmail.com. And I am gathering poems for this new project until June 20th, 2021. So for all the readers who have read, I would love you to send me things. I also would love any of our listeners, or if you know poets or people thinking about this and writing this, like, please send them my way. Thank you.
We gave her a name @gmail.com. So I posted that in the chat if you've got the chat open, and the due date June 1st, and I hope you will.
June 20th.
I lied.
June 20th. Maybe you didn't say it clear enough. Yeah,
No, I'm sure you did.
I did the original call, I think, on like one of the solstices or equinoxes, and so I'm ending on one as well.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Rachel. And I hope that our listeners and participants today will send Rachel some poems, and one anthology is not going to do the job, right? The poems keep exploding, and I think it's very,
I want them all.
exciting.
Yeah, we need them all.
Yes, and we need them all. I believe that Maxine Hanks is here now. If she wants to share at this point. Yay, wonderful, you made it. Okay.
2 minutes late, yeah, thanks.
No worries.
So you're ready for mine now?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So this poem that I'm reading is the last one of the 4 that appear in Dove Song. And the 4 poems that I submitted tell a story of my journey from the first poem I wrote in the 1970s. I think it was 1976, after hearing Carolyn Pearson speak and read her poetry at Ricks College. So, and then, and it was a hopeful poem, a wistful poem. And then the two poems I submitted from the 90s are expressing frustration, some anger, cynicism about the status of the Mother in Heaven in the church. And then the last poem, the one I'm going to read tonight, I wrote in 2012 when I came back to the LDS Church after being either inactive or an excommunicated member for 28 years. And it's called Here the Whole Time. I was barely a teen when you appeared in my dreams of chapels and sacraments, gentle, wise, wordless guide, offering holy water in crystal brimmed with light. I thirsted for First Communion with you at 13, thwarted by those who stopped the wellspring. You reappeared in glimpses, a movement and a rest in my peripheral vision, a moment in a mirror, a flutter in the breeze. You walked with me invisible, a presence approaching or retreating, ever reticent. Both of us were ghosts, unrecognized potentials in my mind, grasping for some solid sense of self. I saw outlines, phantoms, shadows, not embodied spark, incarnate light, intelligence, truth. Yet you were there all along. I recalled the night my soul awoke inside a dream. You appeared within my spirit. Who are you? I asked. You know me, you said. Sophia, I breathed. Wisdom, world soul, paraclete. You were there the whole time, animating life all around me, in the eyes of every woman and man, in the songs of children, the cries of babies, in laughter and pain. The world was your witness. The soul of every human being was your home. You were here the whole time, between the words that tried to say you were not here or could not be known. You were here within the texts that talked of trees and groves, of wisdom and vision, in imagery and meaning, in the missing lines of liturgy and history. You were here the whole time.
Thank you so much, Maxine. And thank you to everybody who was able to read today. That feels like a beautiful place to end our celebration of early Mother's Day, May Day, 3 years of Dove Song and the Divine Feminine. Thank you so much for coming.